Hello and welcome back to How to Homeschool in High School, the podcast focused on encouraging and equipping you to homeschool through high school. My name is Nadine Laufer. I am a high school homeschooler, and this is the 27th episode of How to Homeschool in High School. It is also the first episode of Season 2 and the last episode of 2023. So, big deal. This is the first episode I've done since our 1-year anniversary of the podcast, so that makes it Season 2, I think. At least that's what I want it to be. So it is Season 2. So this is a big deal. This is a big episode. And it's been long overdue because we recorded this episode back in August of 2023 with all intentions of releasing it sometime September or October. And as you can see, that did not happen. So today is the day, finally. I had the privilege of interviewing the Young family on this episode today. I found them through Instagram, actually. I found them about a year ago when I first started the podcast, and I've had the wonderful privilege of being able to follow along their homeschooling journey and the amazing opportunities that they have had and that they're sharing with the world. So I was like, well, why don't I just have them on the podcast? We can talk about all these things in more detail, and they can share it maybe with a larger audience. So today, we get to hear from Miss Tasha Young and her two sons, Riken and Latham Young, and they're both high school homeschoolers, and they're very heavily involved in theater and programs like Destination Imagination, both of which I'm very unfamiliar with. So this is new exposure to a new side of homeschooling that we haven't explored yet. So this is a pretty exciting episode. I'm excited to share it with you. I hope you enjoy listening to it. So without further ado, here is episode number 27. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
We're really excited. Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, this is going to be really fun. When I first started the podcast and I got on Instagram, your account was one of the first I think I ever followed. And I remember thinking how amazing it was that a family was just sharing their homeschooling experience because it's so important. There's a lot of stereotypes and misunderstanding around that. So thank you guys so much for what you're doing. It's really important.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, that's the reason why we actually started the Instagram account is because when I'd been homeschooling a couple of years and I started looking at other Instagram accounts when the boys hit middle school, and I just thought there's not hardly any out there, or high school accounts. And so, you know, I really sat down with the boys and I said, how do you guys feel about us starting an account and kind of being, you know, representing an area that's not very represented? And they were all in for it. So I couldn't do it without the boys, that's for sure. And I'm just so glad they're willing to kind of be a beacon for the middle schoolers and homeschoolers and high schoolers that are homeschooled. Yeah, that's pretty much the same reasoning behind me starting any of this, was just simply I felt like there was not enough information for like middle school, high school specifically. So yeah. I agree. Cool. And I know it's not as cute as like when the kids are little, but we're doing our best. But for anyone who does not know who you are, do you mind just introducing yourselves and talking a bit about your homeschooling journey?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Riken Young. We have been homeschooled since 2017, by our mom and our dad. And I was skeptical at first because, you know, homeschooling has this very uninviting stigma. And I just remember thinking, well, might as well put a foot forward. And it turned into this amazing adventure where we're now doing dual enrollment. I feel like I'm much more educated than I would have been in school. I'm a very creative mind, so I was allowed to think and build constructs in my own way that allowed me to visualize, and I just loved it. And I know, sorry, that didn't answer the question on who we were. I kind of spat on this whole thing.
No, that's great.
But I am a homeschooler, and I'm very proud of that.
My name is Latham Young, and I started homeschooling at the same time my brother did. And what's really cool is we would never really see each other in school. And now we see each other all the time, and I think that's great. And we do the same stuff, and we collaborate on things that we need to, and I really enjoy that.
So for me, our homeschool journey started when the boys were in second and third grades, and I actually had a teacher at a parent-teacher conference say, oddly, have you ever thought about homeschooling? Mm-hmm. And I was kind of taken off guard by that. I was like, but she said both the boys are so gifted and talented in ways that schools don't really recognize or support. So the boys were thriving academically and they were thriving socially. There was really nothing wrong with our public school experience, but she knew me and my work ethic. She knew the boys, and she just said, you should consider it. Mm-hmm. So from that time forward, for the next couple of years, I really researched a ton about homeschooling. I bought the Well-Trained Mind book, and I read it from front to back, and I dog-eared, and I, put sticky notes in it, and I always call it my homeschool Bible. And I just really thought about it. But I was still super intimidated by it. I didn't know anyone who homeschooled. I hadn't had any experience with it. So the boys were in school for 2 more years after that. And our school actually got so big that it had to be divided. And we were in the group that we were going to have to go to a new campus anyway. So we were going to have new teachers, new classmates, new school building.
New everything.
And I'd been thinking about it for a couple of years by that point. And I really sat down with my husband and I said, what do you think about this? He was all for it. He just said, we're making a big change anyways. If it doesn't work out, you can always re-enroll the boys. If it's not what you think, or you think that they're not thriving, you can always re-enroll them if you want to. Mm-hmm. And for some reason that gave me, it lifted a weight off my shoulders, thinking, okay, we can try this and we can always, put it back in if it doesn't work. So Riken was starting 5th grade and Lathan was starting 4th grade when we decided to homeschool. Really, it's been everything and more I ever could have thought. It's been the best thing for me that I've ever done. I don't know what you guys think, but it's been wonderful.
I was actually going to say, my mom got the Well-Trained Mind when we started our co-op, and she called it the Homeschooling Bible too.
It needs to change its name.
I know, yeah.
I still have it. I still have my same copy. When anybody says, like, what should I be doing, or I'm considering homeschooling, I'm like, just, you need to buy the book. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest piece of advice.
It's always on the side table.
It's always on the side. Yeah, the cover's like coming off, and because every year you gotta redo for every year. So I always refer to it.
I think it's down here somewhere on my mom's shelves, but yeah, it's all dog-eared and there's so many tabs in it. It's crazy.
Yep.
But that's really fun.
Your mom and I'd be good friends.
I think so, yeah. And then, so you guys were in public school and then you were homeschooled. That's very similar to what we were. I was in public school till 4th grade. My sister was in 2nd grade when we were pulled out. So
about the same time. Yeah. And another thing is my husband just traveled all the time. He traveled all the time, and it was hard for us to kind of see him as a family. And that was another really reason why we did it, is to have flexibility to travel with him. So he still, COVID, kept him home for a couple of years, but now he's traveling again. And we try to take a trip with him like once a month. So like we just came back from Seattle, we're going to Missouri. So that's another great aspect of homeschooling, is that flexibility of travel.
Yeah, your school isn't like in a building. You can take it with you. That's so fun. And then what grades are you guys going into this coming school year?
I am going to be in 10th grade, sophomore year in high school.
And then I'm going to be a junior in high school here.
Nice. So how do you touched upon dual enrollment, but how do you guys do high school?
So we have always used kind of a mix of online and in-person curriculum and materials. And we also, we haven't started, but this semester we're going to start dual enrollment in our local community college, where we're going to be taking college algebra 1 and 2 basically in one semester, and then federal government as well as English.
And we have no idea what that's going to be like. Yes. We have orientation on Monday, and we're really excited about it. But yeah, we've always used a variety of curriculums. I've never just done like a straight box curriculum, A to Z, it covers everything. I've always just done the research throughout the year and over the summer to, decide what's going to work best for us. And we've kind of jumped around a little bit with some different curriculums, but we'll use stuff like Oak Meadow, History of the World, Math UC.
Bookshark.
Bookshark. We did Mr. D's ASL, American Sign Language, and Economics this year. So I also asked the boys what they're interested in. So we did AP Psychology one year. They want to do Sociology this year. And you kind of have to just find the resources to go with their likes and interests as well.
And that's also another thing that I do love about homeschooling. It enables you to follow your passions. It enables you to really discover what you like, and also build upon yourself as an individual. And also with homeschool, we do all the work. We do all the work within the school day. There's no like homework. And I really, really like the question that you said, how do you homeschool? Because there are truly a million different ways to homeschool and a million different ways for everybody. And that really is what encapsulates homeschool. It's your way to go about school. It's your way to teach yourself, and it's your way to figure out who you are.
Very well said. That's pretty much everything that I always love about homeschooling. And you also get to discover how you learn best. And, just pursuing your passions is such a wonderful gift of homeschooling that's so lacking in, or almost impossible to do in traditional schooling. So,
Agreed.
And then you guys you just mentioned musical theater or theater. So could you talk a bit about that? How did you guys go about finding out that you wanted to do it and then actually finding a way to do it as a homeschooler?
We started theater because I thought they would be good at it. So we tried one, and then it really kind of ignited a passion
Snowball
that I had no idea would happen. So go ahead, Lisa.
And we have, so the theater we go to is it's the largest children's theater in the entire country. It's really awesome.
Wow.
And they have lots of locations with different theaters where there's there's 2 huge main stages and then black boxes and stuff like that, depending on what shows you want to do and where you want to perform. But it's called North Texas Performing Arts, and they do, how many shows? They did 250 shows this year across their 7 locations they have, and it's super easy to do. Shows are usually 6, 8, 10 or 12 weeks, depending on the show director, how many people are in the cast. You have auditions and callbacks, so it feels it is a legit theater, and it's such an amazing organization, and I cannot recommend it enough. So what I like about musical theater is it's an outlet for everything. It helps me interact with other people. It helps me express myself in 100 different ways. And it's taught me so many things that nothing else in the world can teach you. I think discipline, having to learn things by yourself and
be held accountable.
For things. You can't show up to rehearsal not knowing your lines or songs. You have to take charge and learn your stuff, or else the whole cast fails. It teaches social awareness, where you have to be a part of a team. It's a team sport. I know a lot of people don't see it that way, but it really is. And you have one missing link can cause the whole chain to fall apart.
Also, for me, it teaches them vulnerability.
Very much.
That they have to put themselves out there on stage for people to look at them and kind of, not only enjoy the performance, but there's also some judging going on, I would say, by the audience. And everything about a teenager's brain, kind of wants acceptance, and they are so vulnerable to go out on the stage and do that. I just admire them so much for doing that, because how many adults would do that? 0.
Yeah.
It's very vulnerable for them to be actors. What do you think about acting?
I think acting, along with homeschool, has really taught me, take what you can while you can have it, and not only that, use what you have within yourself to the best of your abilities to put yourself forward and to really show yourself what you can do in the world. Theater is it's very entertaining. It's very fun. It teaches you so many life lessons like homeschool, and it's just important to us. And I think everybody could definitely get a grasp of it.
Yeah, theater sounds pretty amazing. And I also looked, you guys were involved in something called Destination Imagination this year, which is
yeah.
Could you talk about that? That looks really awesome.
Destination Imagination, also referred to as DI, is this academic competition that is truly one of the most amazing experiences we have ever done. We have been a part of the, not same team, but we've been with the same group since we were in first grade. So DI is very similar to theater in a fact where it teaches you how to work as a team. But with DI, you have to rely on a smaller group of people, and you have to do everything. So it's if you took musical theater, but then you had to write the show, direct the play, write up plans for your set, and you have to build your set and find your materials, all within a budget of $200. And I actually think the younger kids have a smaller budget. That's another thing that's really cool. They have different age groups. So there's an opportunity for everybody, even if you're really young or through senior. I mean, basically from the time you start school to the time you end it, that's how we've done it. And there's different levels of competition. So there's regionals. Every state has X amount of regions in it. Just the teams from your region compete locally. And the top 3 teams move on to top 3, 6, or I forgot what the number was.
It depends on the year.
It is.
It's usually 1 or 2, and then you move on to state, and the 1 or 2 from state move on to globals.
Globals, right. And then globals is...
But it's just not a theater type program. They also do like your technical challenges this year. So
that's what I was going to talk about next was the challenges. So that's what makes DI, Destination Imagination, super unique, is that each challenge has different components, but more specifically, it'll be like a service learning challenge where your team has to go out and volunteer or impact your surrounding community in a way and then make a performance about it. Or a scientific challenge where you have to research a topic, usually it could be health or biology, and then you have to incorporate that into your performance. They also have engineering where you build something. Like the engineering challenge this year was a roller coaster, where these teams would have to build a big roller coaster and then make a performance about the roller coaster and incorporate it. And then you get scored on like how integrated your topic is. Like it's so much to think about, and it's so incredible.
And usually when we do DI, we do it every other year because it is a lot per year.
Yeah.
So we kind of need a brain break for a year.
Yeah.
And when we do DI, we kind of treat it as a subject. That's how much time it takes. So the boys will spend like an hour or 2 a day on DI, and then creating the project, they'll have to do some after school work or Saturday work on creating the sets and the costumes and the technical elements of the challenge. So we treat DI kind of like a subject, but that's another great way where homeschool is so flexible for us, because honestly, if the boys are in traditional high school with all the stuff that comes with traditional high school, I don't think they'd have time for DI. Yeah. And a lot of the high school team, there aren't a lot of high school teams, I think for that very reason, is because teenagers just run out of time. DI encourages creativity, and that's why the budget is so low. They want you to think about how you can use recycled materials and look at everyday items as a set of some sort. So that's really cool too. It really sparks their creativity. And also for me, it is completely child-led. They talk about interference. So I manage the team along with another homeschool mom, but we can't give any recommendations. We can't say, hey, you should build that dragon out of, cans. They have to do everything themselves. And that for me was so great, even at first grade, to see what kids are capable of if you just give them opportunity. So now it's kind of like a joke in our family where they'll come to me with a problem and they'll be like, hey, mom, blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, well, go figure it out. And they're like, no, we need your help. I'm like, no, you can do it. I know you can do it. So it's been really great to see them thrive on their own with that program. It's been really, really cool.
That sounds like a lot of work, but really fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to describe DI.
And on the whole child instigated part of it, there's so much of conventional schooling that just tells you what to do all the time. Every moment is kind of scheduled out. And with homeschooling, you're in charge of your own structure and what you get done and what you don't get done. And also we discover we actually can handle this. And that's a really cool skill and something to go into life with, knowing that I can actually handle these things. I can make these things. I could organize an event, so that's something that I've greatly appreciated with homeschooling. I think it's a good point to ask. Do you guys ever feel like you're missing out on anything?
We were talking about this. We were discussing this question last night. And I think what I came up with was when you decide to homeschool, you have to know that obviously sacrifices are going to be made. Yeah. So in Texas, we have a high school football is the biggest thing in the world here. And Friday night football games are a huge thing. And prom and all that, and homecoming is a big deal here too. We obviously aren't going to be able to go to those things because we don't go to our the school. But we, as homeschoolers, make up for those Friday nights and prom and homecoming by having free time every day and traveling a lot and seeing the world. And we also have other options. We have homeschool prom, which we're going to go to later this year, which I'm super excited about. And there's going to be people I know there, and it's going to be a really good time. So there's definitely sacrifices you have to know you're going to have to make to homeschool. So if you do live in a place like Texas where high school football is a big deal, if you're not invited by people, you're probably going to miss out.
Well, to me, I feel like life is a series of compromises.
Exactly.
Even as adults, we don't get every option. And even as kids, you don't get every option. So you kind of think about your options in life and you have to make choices.
Right.
I feel like you know what your choices are and you've made your choice.
So I do not feel like I'm missing out. I actually feel like I'm gaining more than I would have in school. Yes, I don't get to have prom, but we get to go to something else like homeschool prom or improv class. All these amazing, super fun, really informative still that allow you to, again, discover more of who you are. In traditional high school, you're kind of lost in the mix. And I know, especially here at our local high school, we only have one high school per our really city and per our ISD rather. And all these kids are crammed into this one school. And I've had several friends who have come back to me and said that they feel lost. They feel like they're not being properly taught. There are kids that are really, really smart, but maybe they're just bad test takers and they fall through the cracks and they're not able to get back up again. And in doing homeschool, I've been able to flourish, and I'm not even in a crack. I'm in the sky. But going back to the question, do I feel like I'm missing out on anything? No. I feel like I've gained more of my life back.
Absolutely.
That's a very good way to put it. It's all about perspective. Like it's all about your attitude, the way you look at it. There's more than one way to experience high school, and a lot of people just say that traditional schooling is the ultimate. Well, in fact, there's so many other opportunities we get as homeschoolers that, like, not just prom, and that's not what high school is all about. And sometimes I feel like a lot of people come across that way whenever they, come across my Instagram page. It's like that prom and sports is the ultimate. I'm like, it really isn't. Like, there's so many other parts of high school that we get to explore that we wouldn't, being lost in the mix, as you said. So yeah, it's all about the way you think about it.
And then also prom and Friday night football games are like the only things they can think of that's like, wow, you're going to miss out on just these two things. Meanwhile, it's like if you had homeschoolers say the opposite, it would be like, dude, you're going to miss out on like a trip to Seattle and blah, 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 blah. Like, you can name 100 of these things when they can only name prom and sports.
Yeah, very true. Ms. Tasha, what is your advice for any homeschooling parents who are concerned about high school? Specifically because you guys have a thriving homeschooling experience, and I know a lot of people want that.
My only advice is try it. Take the first step, do your research. I think people do a lot better when they're prepared, obviously. So do your preparation, do your research, and just try it. I also was very intimidated by homeschooling high school. I thought about it almost as much as starting homeschool as I did thinking about homeschooling high school. Society and culture tells you, you've got to put your kids in school in order for them to be, considered for college and higher education. And I felt very intimidated by that as well. But again, I just thought, we're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, we can always put it back in. I just have always thought that. And my only regret with homeschooling is I didn't do it sooner. I just kicked myself that I didn't start the 2 years prior. It's really easier than you think, and you are more capable than you think. Homeschooling high school is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so glad we've gotten the chance to experience it together.
I think the biggest thing is do your research and find what fits you the best, and don't settle immediately. Don't find the first thing and think, oh, this looks good. Really find your options as far as curriculum, because there's always, if you look hard enough, there's going to be something better out there. And I think, again, like what my mom said, try it. It's always something you can undo. It's not like a permanent decision. You can always go back into regular school if you don't like it. So I think find what works for you and go for it.
And kind of touching back on the last subject, another, I'd say, advice would be to prepare for some sacrifices. And that's what you're going to have to deal with. And that's just the way it is. And then also, I feel like another kind of, it's not so much as advice, but kind of like a persuasion effort, is it allows you to have a way better family connection. I mean, in the beginning, Latham and I, we were brothers, I feel like. I mean, we were friends, but we're brothers, and that was just our connection. And like in the school, like, yeah, we'd pass each other and we'd do like a handshake, and that'd be it. And then I'd get home, and then we'd have homework, we'd go to bed, and then I wouldn't see him until I do a handshake with him crossing from gym class next day. And then when we became homeschooled, I really became his best friend. Like, I know so much more about him. I know that he plays bass. I know all the stuff he does with his luscious locks and hair. I know about my brother. He's my brother, and I know more about my mom and my dad. And as I said previously, I know more about myself. Homeschool really allows you to get a magnificent connection with your family, yourself. And it's really insightful, not just into who you are, but the world as well and your place in it. And so, yeah, my advice would be prepare for sacrifices and kind of a persuasion effort. You're going to really find out and have fun with your family.
Yeah, and one thing that my mom always tells me is with homeschooling, she sees that like all my friends in my community are able to be themselves right where they are. Like they're not heavily influenced by others. Like in the school system, you're constantly comparing yourself, and there's a popular trend, and there's hardly any of that. And you're able to go into your, like, not necessarily just college, but the workforce, knowing who you are and have a firmer grip on that. Then, like my mom said, she got out of high school and she was like, now what do I do? Like, who am I exactly apart from that whole system, And so that's such a blessing. And it's one of the main things that I have enjoyed myself is we're able to do things like podcasts and musical theater and kind of just discovering who we are at a deeper level. So, yeah.
So true.
And then also, I was going to ask about your Instagram page. So you talked a bit about the inspiration behind it, but what has like the response been to your page? Like, have you been able to build like a community and encourage people?
Yeah, the response to it has been overwhelmingly positive. I can't even tell you, it's not a lot of comments on like the Instagram page, but I get a lot of private messages saying exactly what we hoped for. You're kind of like a beacon of light for like the middle school and homeschool community. And they just appreciate that we're out there, showing what the homeschool high school life is like.
Yeah.
And that just makes me feel so good because that was our intention. It was our intention to, just be a guide for people who were curious about and show that it's possible. I think in the whole time I've gotten maybe one weird comment, but other than that, I mean, it's been, I think I started it in 2019. So since then, it's just been overwhelmingly positive.
And the inspiration behind it was just to kind of share your homeschooling. Yeah,
just I would like on my bio, it just says documenting our days. I'm not paid for anything. I'm not pushing a certain curriculum. I am not concerned about when I post or how I post, so I'm not really consistent with it. I try to post at least once a week. It really just is us documenting our days. Here's what we do and how we do it. And I'm always happy to answer questions, but it's just a labor of love. No other reason than to just show people what we're doing and how we do it and that they can do it too.
Yeah. And that's so powerful. We need more. I always try to encourage my friends to like share, more about your homeschooling because so many people just don't understand what it can really be. And that even though you're making sacrifices for certain things, there is so much more to gain. I often think we spend so much time thinking about what homeschoolers can't do that we forget like the long list of things that we actually get to do. So every time you post something, I'm always like really encouraged by it because it's just another family who's, it reminds you you're not alone, even with the homeschooling community. Because sometimes it feels a little bit isolating at times. So having social media. I
appreciate you saying that so much. I can't tell you how much that means to me because that's exactly why we do it. It makes me feel really good. Does that make you guys feel good?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It definitely makes me feel better knowing that we can not only inspire but also help to educate more people about the recognition of homeschooling and what it can do for you.
Yeah. I wonder if people, and this is kind of off topic, and you certainly don't have to include this, but I wonder if people don't do it because they think it's not as cute as when you're like in first grade and you're posting about bumblebees and, you know, you're like, what, do you have any reason, philosophy on why there's not more people posting?
I don't know. For a while, I thought it was just simply because it's harder to homeschool like preschool age, like to keep them occupied. And a lot of moms are worried about having their kids home all the time. Like, what are we going to do? So I don't know if that's more, or like I see a trend of a lot of younger moms starting to homeschool. And even like on my page, I get questions like, what about elementary school? And so I'm like, yeah, go to all of the other pages that share about it.
There's so many of those. So many.
Yeah. And I love that. I do love all what those moms are sharing, but
I do too.
It's like a lot of teens have commented like, thank you for, doing this. And I just recently found a homeschool YouTuber who's about my age, and a lot of people thank her, like finally like someone who's sharing all this stuff about homeschooling through high school. And some people drop high school, like they homeschool up till high school and then they don't. So sometimes that's a trend too. And I just hope that through like influencers like this can help people think, oh, it's not like really, really hard to do.
Right.
And it's actually really fun. So yeah, but you guys are certainly doing a lot of amazing things. And I just like looking at them, like they're fully embracing everything homeschooling has to offer, which is so fun to see.
We're very intentional with our day too. And I've always been a person that likes to do a lot of things, and I think that's rubbed off on the boys. So I'm always like, let's get our stuff done so we can go to the zoo and we can go to the museum and we can, take a tour or travel. So all of that takes, intention and schedule. So I'm trying to max it out, our time together, and it'll be over before I know it, and they'll be off to the next thing. But we're having a good time in the meantime.
Yeah, my mom is already grieving the end of. I'm like, Mom, Tessa still has a whole 4 years. Like it's, I'm still here. So yeah, but she loves it. She calls it her golden years. Like she just loves homeschooling. She's had so much fun learning. I don't know if that's your experience too, but like learning alongside of us. And
yes, I love it. I love learning with them. It's the best.
And I was actually, that brought up another question that I wanted to ask. With high school, sometimes there's a lot of work to get done. How do you guys structure your homeschool week?
Yeah, our day is very structured. So, and I've always asked the boys what they want to do first, and we do hour increments. So we start exactly at 8:30, and I'll say, we'll schedule the year before we start, and I'll say, what do you guys want to do? And they always say they want to do the harder subjects first.
Oh yeah, gotta get it out of the way.
I love that people can homeschool all sorts of different ways, but what's worked best for us is having a structure.
Structure is really important for high school, at least in my experience, because it's very easy to get distracted, and harder subjects done in the morning. Like we always start with math too, math and science. And because without that, they're looming over your head the whole day, and then you kind of just don't want to work.
Yeah.
At least in my experience. So I do believe that structure through high school is very important.
It's worked very well for us.
And I do think another important part of that structure, and I'm going to say it, is recesses and like mental break.
Yes.
I know another thing in traditional high school, in public school, is in high school they have no recesses at all. They consider, well, at least in our local high school, they consider your breaks to be periods in between classes. And it's like, oh, you're walking, and that's fine. You have enough time to grab a drink, blah, 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 blah. But it really doesn't. It really doesn't allow you, because you're still stressed about what's going to happen next. You got science at 2 p.m. Then you got to rush down the hall at like 4:30, trying to run to your your like math test or something. And when what we do is we have like we have a 30-minute break, and then we have like an hour break. And in doing that, we are given a whole new refresh, and we do the break right after math and science. So then that allows us to get all that out of our system. It allows us to really relax, take a break, and then bam, right back to it. Our minds are refreshed. We are able to think much faster. We're able to come up with better ideas. And so I do think an important thing to integrate into that structure is mental breaks. It's
Yeah, the refresh. You can't, because, as much as we enjoy structure is very important. We don't want to copy the public school system because we know it's not most conducive to like learning well. So yeah, we do take breaks. I always struggle when explaining like structure to people who are just starting homeschooling, because you also want to take advantage of the, flexibility that we have to be able to do piano lessons at 10:30, which is what we do. So normally you could never do that in a traditional schooling environment, but you also want to make sure you have that structure in your school day as well.
Right.
So it's a balance. Well, I had so much fun. Thank you for everything you shared. It was all so important, so inspiring. And thank you so much for all the encouragement as well. And keep up the Instagram page. It's so important.
All right, we will. Thank you so much. It was so nice meeting you.
It was so nice to meet you guys too. Thank
you. All right, bye.
Thank you.
So that is it for episode number 27. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed. And as we wrap up this episode, I just wanted to highlight the main thing that stood out to me this entire episode. And I want to also thank the Young family for taking time out of their busy summer schedule to come and sit and talk with us and to share everything that they did. And everything that they talked about and their Instagram page is all linked in the show description, whether that's Destination Imagination, their theater group as well. It's all in the show notes. I highly recommend you go and follow them and continue to just explore their homeschooling journey. But that's the main thing I think that I wanted to challenge you guys with at the end of this episode, is that this family has made such an impact in the homeschooling community just by telling their story and sharing a bit about their lives and reminding us all that we're not alone in this. And I know I repeated this a lot through the episode, but it's so true. And I used to think at the beginning of my podcast journey that I needed to destroy the stereotypes surrounding homeschooling. And I still think that's part of the reason I'm doing this. But I used to think the way to destroy the stereotypes was through words and facts and proof and everything like that. Like, there's no denying that these things are wrong, and here's why. And the more I've learned about homeschooling, the more I've talked with homeschoolers, I realize that that's actually the wrong way to go about it. The most powerful way to destroy the stereotypes and the stigmas around homeschooling is people. Real people sharing real stories, and that breaks the cycle. That breaks the stereotypes down, because in those situations, in a thriving homeschooling experience speaks so much louder than any proof or facts I could give you. Real life stories matter. So your story as a homeschooler or as a beginning homeschooler, whatever you are in the journey, it matters. So I think the main challenge for me going into the new year, and I want to challenge you all, is just to share your story. And it doesn't have to be on Instagram. Maybe it is. Maybe this is your sign to go on Instagram and start an Instagram page and just share a bit about your homeschooling journey. Or you have an Instagram page and you just want to talk more about homeschooling. But it could be with your next door neighbor. It could be a friend of yours that's in public school. It could be anyone, frankly, that shows some interest in homeschooling. Just share your story. Share the ups, share the downs, share the in-betweens, everything. We're not hiding anything from homeschooling. We're trying not to make it seem perfect or incredible all the time. Like, there are times where homeschooling is hard. There are times where homeschooling doesn't work out. But your story matters. And in this incredible surge of homeschoolers across America, we need more people speaking up and sharing and talking about their experience. It is so powerful. It is so needed. So that is your encouragement for 2024, is let it be a year of breakthroughs. Let us all come out and share our stories as homeschoolers and encourage and empower other people. So thank you for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening this entire year. We've had a wonderful year. I'm going to post our little stats for the homeschool, how to homeschool in high school on my Instagram page, so you can see how far we've grown since last year, which is pretty amazing. Stick around for next week. We get to interview Naya, who is the creator of the YouTube channel I keep talking about. She's going to be on the podcast to share some productivity tips that she shared on her YouTube channel. And then we're going to just talk about homeschooling and our view of education. And I'm so excited to share with you guys. She's pretty amazing. So be sure to stick around for the first episode of 2024. It's couldn't be a more perfect episode for that new year. So I hope you guys have a wonderful New Year celebration and continue to stay curious. We'll see you all next week. Bye.